Ubisoft revealed Assassin's Creed Shadows this week, and ladies and gentlemen, I think they got me. I'm actually excited for Assassin's Creed again. Now call me crazy, but honestly, I'm not that surprised. Ubisoft has some of the best CGI trailers in the business. I mean, that Brotherhood trailer still gives me goosebumps. But it's not just that. The fantasy of playing as an actual assassin in feudal Japan with stuff like dynamic weather and lighting systems that actually push the stealth formula forward, these are legitimate reasons to be excited, so I'm not gonna hide that. But I know what you're gonna say. Don't get hyped. And trust me, I hear you. Even if the details sound nice so far, and they sound really nice, I gotta see gameplay. I need to see how this game actually looks and feels, to see if these features are truly as groundbreaking and as fun as they sound. And look, if you follow the channel, you know I was very hyped for Valhalla before it came out. Ubisoft knew exactly what to say and push all the right buttons. But I like to think I learned something from that experience, and that's to not build unrealistic expectations for these games. Assassin's Creed Shadows will be a massive RPG just like Odyssey and just like Valhalla before it. And the key for me is to know that going in so I'm not expecting some return to form for the game like I did with Valhalla. While this game should have better stealth than Odyssey and Valhalla, it's going to evolve forward in a new way and not backwards. What I'm trying to say is Assassin's Creed is never going to feel like it used to feel. They tried that with Mirage, and I think it worked to varying degrees, but expecting that sort of experience out of the next big entry in the franchise is just a pipe dream. Long story short, know what you're getting into with this game. Don't expect this thing to be a return back to roots, anything like that, because Ubisoft's not saying it, and we shouldn't expect it, and even if they do, I wouldn't trust it. So ahead of the gameplay reveal that's going to happen in June, let's talk about what we've seen so far, and I'm going to start with what I like. Ubi's giving us two protagonists for the first time since Syndicate, and we're going to be able to switch between them pretty much at will with some exceptions. The first is Naue. She's a shinobi, and she will be the stealth-focused character. And the second is Yasuke, who's supposed to be the brawler and the samurai upfront brawler character. Now, what I like so much about this is they are out front saying this one is for the stealth and this one is for the not stealth. Unlike Syndicate, where Jacob and Evie controlled very similarly except for some skill tree stuff, Naue sounds like an absolute glass cannon. She cannot parry or block, and instead she has to deflect attacks. The devs have also described her as much faster and more agile than Yasuke, and she has a grappling hook, which is physics-based, so it should be a little less cartoony than the rope launcher was in Syndicate. That'll allow her to approach stealth situations very differently than Yasuke, because he won't be able to climb certain walls and go certain routes. Another thing that's going to distinguish the gameplay between these characters is that Naue is going to have her hidden blades, and she's going to be able to double assassinate, which finally that's back. And Yasuke will not have hidden blades at all. He's just going to be a warrior, samurai type character with a different playstyle. I think part of the issue for me with Valhalla is that when I wanted to be an assassin type character, I could spec into that stuff and get those abilities, but it still felt like a wishy-washy halfway in between, and I never really felt like a true assassin. In Shadows, Yasuke doesn't even have a hidden blade, so it's not even a question. If I do want to play a certain playstyle and feel a certain way, Naue is the character that I can switch to and play as and get that feeling. They've also confirmed, which gets me really excited, that hidden blade only combat is back. So if you want to just fight with Naue's hidden blades, and she's also got the cool hidden blade that turns to the side like Connor had, then you can do that. Some of my favorite animations in combat from the entire series are just with the hidden blades, just going absolutely bananas on the enemies. I'm excited to be able to do that again. Another thing I like so far is what they're saying about lighting and using shadows. There's going to be dynamic light and shadows which affect the enemy's vision. There's going to be a light meter on the HUD that's going to show you how well hidden you are to your enemies, which is just screams Splinter Cell, which is exciting for me. But I like the idea of creating my own places to hide using the environment, right? Like there's going to be some torches you can snuff, there's going to be lantern carriers and bases that you can take out. Using light as a means for stealth is not a new idea for video games in general, but it's certainly new for Assassin's Creed. That's never been a thing before. So I like that they're evolving stealth forward. You know what I mean? this feels like a logical next step, and I'm glad they're taking it. But I gotta say, it better work, man. I mean, Valhalla's stealth was broken and might potentially still be broken for a very, very long time. And what's encouraging, though, is that Mirage got it right. Mirage stealth actually works like I think it should. It's logical, it makes sense. And it also brought back social stealth, which I think is just a key core component of an Assassin's Creed game that was sadly lost in the last 3 for the most part. So I really hope that there was some cross-pollination in terms of ideas between Bordeaux and Quebec and all these other supporting studios in regards to stealth and how detection works, because it really needs to work. It's going to be a problem if it doesn't work like Valhalla. Another small addition, but I think one that matters, is being able to go prone. We can go all the way to the ground. We've never been able to do that before, at least in Assassin's Creed. When we're scouting out places for stealth, we're no longer going to have a bird companion in order to fly above and mark targets. Instead, they're going back to the good old-fashioned eagle vision, which you're going to be able to see people through walls and they'll be marked. Personally, I don't have a problem with this. It is very much in line with Assassin's Creed like lore and how the world works and, you know, the explanation for that. So I'm completely fine with this. I didn't have a problem with the bird, but I kind of like them going away from it because it felt like that gameplay loop. I mean, we've had 4 games with a bird. It got a little tired for me, so I'm glad that they're switching that up this time. Now we're going to switch gears and talk about the improvements to the engine, which we kind of already touched on with the lighting, but there's a lot of new things going on, and they are calling this like a newly updated version of the Anvil engine, which is just exciting. The last 3 RPG Creeds feel really similar in terms of how those games played and looked, so I'm eager to see how this one looks. Probably the most exciting part is seasons. So the world is going to progress through spring, summer, autumn, and winter, and that's going to change a lot of things about the environment. In spring and summer, you're going to see a lot of plants bloom and flowers. There's going to be bushes and grass that you can hide in for gameplay. But then as the year goes on, those plants are going to die and you won't have those hiding places anymore. There's a bit about being able to prone and crawl into a pond, but if it's the winter, that pond is going to freeze over and you won't be able to do that. Apparently, NPCs are also affected by the seasons, so if you are hiding in bushes during the summer, a samurai might cut through grass in order to find you. During the winter, they're going to be around open flames and fire to stay warm, so that's going to open up other paths for you to take. AC games have always had weather to some degree, but never extreme weather. So this game is supposed to have deep fog, howling winds, and then snowstorms that are so bad that it's going to impact the way enemies can see you and hear you. This next bit sounds really far out there, like I've never heard of a video game doing this before, but they're saying that this game has an ecology system where trees will spawn pollen and then wind is going to blow that pollen and then like repopulate grass on the ground. But that's a very long process. Does that just mean when we switch from season to season that there'll be some randomized, patches of grass? I don't really know what they're talking about or how that would even be observable in the game. So I'm kind of holding off on being like super excited about that. It sounds kind of far-fetched, I'll be honest. So what do I think about all this seasonal and weather stuff? I think it's very exciting. I think it brings Assassin's Creed forward into more of a quote-unquote realistic world, within reason. I think people still look at games, people including myself, like Red Dead Redemption 2 and just marvel at how realistic that game feels. I think it is pie in the sky unrealistic to expect Assassin's Creed to do the kind of simulation and even the quality of simulation that we get in a Rockstar game. But at the same time, they're trying to evoke like a living, breathing world. That's a big part of Assassin's Creed. And so taking these steps to sort of push that forward, I hope we feel it. I hope it actually makes a difference. I especially like the bit about NPCs being affected by this weather. It makes sense, and that's just another step that sort of brings you into the world a little bit more. I like how that sounds. Another engine improvement for me is there's a lot of like durability systems going on. So enemy armor can be broken during combat. Everything can be damaged dynamically by your weapons. So if you slash a fruit basket with your katana, you're going to see that slash in the basket, and then you can break pots like Link and Zelda. Not to sound like a broken record, but yeah, this is, again, bringing the game kind of forward, where other games do simulate these things. Assassin's Creed has kind of been behind the curve, I would say, on that. So it's nice for them to sort of, bring this forward. A few more things that I like the sound of so far. Sync points are going to be back, but they're not going to give you a bunch of icons. Instead, they're going to be like a vantage point for you to look around the map with your eyeballs and spot things you want to do instead of spawn a bunch of icons on the map. Ubi themselves have said they want less icons on the screen this time around. So that's awesome. That's exactly what I want. So, I mean, I like the sound of that. In terms of how big this world is going to be, it sounds like they're using some restraint this time, which is actually surprising to me. It's going to be around the same size as Assassin's Creed Origins map of Egypt. And it's going to center only on the central region of Japan. There's actually been some shots out there on social media of one of the art books that shows the map and specifically where the game is going to be set. I'm actually shocked that they did not decide to use the entire island of Japan. I mean, Ghost of Tsushima attempted to do that, and I think does a really good job at that. But to sort of say we're going to focus on this one particular area, it suggests other things about this game to me. I know this is speculation, but from a design perspective, it's like we're going to go for quality over quantity. We've done the quantity over quality in the past. Some people like it, some people don't. They're sort of choosing this path this time, and that is, you know, a decision that speaks to me personally. We're going to build a network of spies who can be sent on missions to gather intel on our targets. Now, if that doesn't sound like an Ezio Assassin's Creed game, I don't know what does. I'm excited for that, and I hope that they give it, you know, like proper time and attention. And then we know there's a hideout where you and your allies can gather and plan stuff. You can fully customize it. If you played Valhalla, you know what this experience is probably going to be like. That sort of fell flat for me, so I hope they really juice it up and make it, I don't know, more assassin-y. All right, that's enough positivity. Let's talk about some things that I'm potentially worried about with this game. First is the approach to story. They're saying it features a non-linear campaign focused on targets. Now, I love that. I think Assassin's Creed should be about assassinating targets, but Ubisoft has said you can do this in any order that you'd like. From a story perspective, I think that's a problem because it suggests that it doesn't matter sort of for the narrative momentum what you do first. It sounds like it's taking a Valhalla approach where, if you guys remember, there were like 16 different narrative arcs in that game, and by the time you were done with 6 of them, you were like, when is this story going to end? And look, I know we're getting into the weeds here on like what an open world narrative should look like, but I do think it makes sense for a story to unfold from point A to point B to point C and not take this circuitous route. For the development of a character, I already like what I'm hearing about Yasuke and Naoe as people, right? Their motivations sound fun and strong, but I just hope the open-ended nature of how they're describing this doesn't harm those motivations. You know, it doesn't harm the momentum of the story pushing forward, like I feel like it did in Valhalla particular. That game, for some reason, just lost me in many different parts, so I hope that Shadows learns from that. Other things I'm worried about, there isn't a lot of mention of parkour so far. I think there is sort of a suggestion that Naoe is better at parkour than Yasuke, which of course makes sense, and I would certainly welcome that. I just really hope that Naoe feels much faster. That's like my biggest gripe with how Eivor feels in Valhalla. Feels like you're running in just water. I hope that Naoe is really quick and agile in parkour, not just combat. I'm worried about how they're going to handle the skill trees in this game, mainly because of how bad, in my opinion, Valhalla was for that. In Valhalla, you could pick a certain direction towards like a specific skill that you wanted to unlock, but you kind of had to live with the skill nodes that were along the way. Like, it didn't feel like you were in complete control. I just hope that they don't get too lost in the weeds with the skill points and the nodes in this game. Like, Valhalla's approach with like 300 plus points that you could spend, by a certain point, I don't think anyone really cared what they were spending in that game because you could unlock everything. So it was really sort of a false choice in that game to me. This time, I hope Shadows goes for quality over quantity. Like, each point that I invest, I hope that matters and I can feel it, rather than accumulating tiny little bits of strength over a very long period of time. I'm worried about how they approach loot and gear in this game, and I know it's not necessarily fair to be worried because we haven't heard anything yet, but it's sort of weird. I'm in that midpoint between wanting it to be more like Odyssey than it was Valhalla, but I don't want it to be like Valhalla, because Valhalla felt like really boring and predictable with loot. There's some sort of sweet spot in the middle there that I hope that they get to. So I don't want to be playing Shadows and then constantly getting a new piece of gear that ranks me up slightly, so I'm having to pause and equip the new thing like every 5 to 10 minutes. That's what Odyssey felt like to me. I hope that they find a middle ground there and give us like rewarding loot from specific scenarios and also some exciting random loot like Odyssey would give you. Active combat skills are returning, and this is an interesting one for me because I know it's the same thing as having like a combo, but just in a different package, in a different form. But they just feel less satisfying to use, especially in Valhalla. For me, it felt like I'd activate one and then watch like a 5-second animation. It took me out of it and made me feel like I wasn't really the one doing the thing. I was just activating a mini cutscene. So I hope they have more restraint here, I think is the best way to describe it. I hope that these are little like modifiers to moves that we can already pull off. Another thing they haven't touched on, but I really hope they get right, is dialogue and choices. Now, if you guys know me, you know that I prefer no choices. I'd rather watch a cutscene with my character than choose different choices that really don't make an impact on things. However, Mirage's cutscenes were rough, dude. Like, just really dead and stiff, and I also didn't love the voice actor's performance in Mirage. So I hope this time around, number one, they get just better direction in terms of how the voice actor is supposed to perform these lines. And then number two, I hope that the animation gets better. I think the animations are pretty to look at, but they don't pass the like uncanny valley test. They feel robotic, even more so than older games, which is strange. And I think it's because they're trying to be so hyper realistic that they sort of miss the mark and it feels fake. So my wish is for no dialogue options, but some high quality, like hand touched, you can tell that they actually spent time evoking the emotions of these cutscenes rather than the robotic, huge open world approach that can be hit or miss. Now, the last big thing that I'm worried about is just microtransactions. Now, I understand Ubisoft is gonna Ubisoft. These things won't change. What I'm worried about is them pushing the boundary even further. I mean, having pop-ups that would come up when you would open up your map in Valhalla happened. Like, that legit happened. That cannot happen in Shadows. That is so irritating and just sucks me right out of the experience. It's a shame because I think underneath this stuff, Ubisoft makes some really solid video games. I mean, still in 2024. But when they treat me like a friggin' prize cow, like getting the udders out and just milking me like crazy, it really turns me off from the experience. Now, we do know via some, reputable leakers that there's gonna be mini battle passes because this is the first game in Assassin's Creed Infinity, which is that big, like, overarching platform for the franchise. Each battle pass is called a project, and there's 20 levels you could advance through. Now, there is a world where it's actually fun to go around in Assassin's Creed Shadows and do certain things and progress this battle pass. There is another more likely world, in my opinion, where this just feels kind of gross and icky and more like Call of Duty, because that's essentially what the model is if they have a battle pass and you can buy premium cosmetics on top of that. I don't know. It's something to look out for. So far, it hasn't soured my, excitement for the game because I think the rest of the game does sound good, but it's sort of like a wait and see holding pattern. Just don't milk me, man. Just don't slice me into meat, okay? I don't want that. I am not a piece of meat. Sell your cosmetics. You're gonna do it. We know you're gonna do it, but also let me exist in a version of this game outside of all of that. Just please, don't let it sour and infect the actual, bones of this game. And actually, since I recorded that bit, Ubisoft came out and said that this is not an online required single player game. You just need to be online to download the game, which makes perfect sense. So look, if I can just unhook from the internet and play this game as a normal, proper single player game, that's great. It feels like I shouldn't have to do that in 2024, but that's the world that we live in. All right, guys, that's all I've got for you. Assassin's Creed Shadows, as you can tell, is mostly pretty exciting for me. I think there's a lot of reasons to be excited, definitely some reasons to be a little bit wary. Like I said, we're a few short weeks away from gameplay being revealed, and I am going to LA for Summer Games Fest, so hopefully I'll be able to see this game behind closed doors, maybe even play it. I don't really know what the plans are yet. Regardless, I will be talking about it. So if you enjoyed this video and you want to hear more, make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, and also hit that bell so you don't miss my next one. And let me know what you think about Shadows, the positives, the negatives, everything in between. I'd love to hear. I'm pretty much consuming Assassin's Creed Shadows content by the gallon full at the moment, so I'd love to hear what y'all think. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.